Welcome to Mother, the show where we can explore our inner mothers to actualize our greatest selves. Through interviews with incredible guests, live coaching sessions, and my own experiences, we're going to dive deep into embracing feminine values and reparenting ourselves. So be prepared to show up, hold space, and be mothered in a way you never have before, but have always needed. It's time to rewrite the mother code. Well, here I am. Welcome to Mother, Rewriting the Mother Code with me, Dr. Gertrude Lyons. I am beyond thrilled and delighted to share and be with our guest today, davidji. So welcome, davidji, to my podcast.
It's a joy and an honor to be here, Dr. Gertrude Lyons. So thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, I'll share a little bit more about how we connected, but I want to kick it off sharing some highlights from your very extensive bio, because you have just made such a wonderful, beautiful impact on the world. And I want to, just in case some people don't know about you, I like to...
I'm sure most people, of the 8 billion people on the planet, I'm sure most of them don't have any idea who I am.
Well, a good number do, because you have taught millions of people around the world to heal their hearts, plant powerful intentions, and manifest their dreams. I love that. Your grasp of time-tested solutions combined with real-world practical applications have helped people at every stage of life and circumstance find balance, heal deep wounds, and transform into their best versions. And I know that to be true because I heard from people when they found out that you and I got to meet. So we'll talk more about that later. But carrying on, as a globally recognized mind, body, health, and wellness expert, mindful performance trainer, meditation teacher, and author of several books: Sacred Powers, The Five Secrets to Awakening Transformation, Amazon's bestseller, De-Stressifying, The Real World Guide to Personal Empowerment, Lasting Fulfillment, and Peace of Mind, and Secrets of Meditation, A Practical Guide to Inner Peace and Personal Transformation, which I believe that one was the winner of the Nautilus Book Award.
Yes,
and yes, and there's more. Please sit tight because I want to name a number of these things because it was so fun, and obviously hugely inspiring. But you are noted to have created the first 21-day meditation process, which now kind of seems like a household word, and lots of people do it. But you led the way with that, and having those kind of experiences where you follow along for let's just start with 21 days. And I also got to experience this, referred to as the velvet voice of stillness. And I literally hear your voice when I read about you or I see one of your meditations. I hear you, which is really cool.
Oh, hello, Gertrude.
There you go. There it is. A prolific creator of guided meditations in the world, with more than 1,000 guided meditations available on Insight Timer, Daily Om, Apple Music, Amazon, Hay House, Spotify, Tidal, and more. And I'll want to hear some about your couple careers that led to where you are, but I'll just name that you had a 20-year career in business, finance, mergers, and acquisitions, and shifted that. And I think our audience hearing some about that would be really, really lovely to hear a bit about that journey. You went on your own journey, but then you hooked up, I'll say, with Drs. Deepak Chopra and David Simon, serving as the Chopra Center COO, lead educator, and the first dean of the Chopra Center University, where you trained more than 300,000 people to meditate and certified more than 25,000 meditation teachers. But now, that was at the Chopra Center. So I don't know if you have your numbers of what that is now.
I stopped paying attention.
Except keeping track. Yeah, exactly.
This is my 20th year, celebrating my 20th year teaching meditation, certifying teachers to be meditation teachers. And this is my 10th year that I'm officially on my own. So I've been I don't know what you call that, a spiritualpreneur or whatever.
Since
2012. That's when
wonderful.
So
we'll backtrack there. I was going to say one more thing, because you work directly with individuals, but also business leaders, in particular people in high stress situations. And that's how I met you, through our mutual friend, Michael Neela, who is the founder and owner of Blue Courage, a law enforcement, teaching social emotional intelligence, mindfulness, meditation to law officers. And you've been part of their journey, I think, since the start, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's where our meeting came in, because you came down here to Zihuatanejo, Mexico. I was one of those people who had not heard of you before. So
you'd be in the majority.
so funny. All these like ways we look at ourselves. But so delighted that we got to spend 3 days. I shared my space and for the meditations for the group that came down that you were helping support and lead with Michael and Blue Courage. And so I personally now have experienced, and I am now a huge fan, and to have spent those 3 days, and much of it has stayed with me. Well, I'll talk about my journey more. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I still think hearing the numbers and hearing some of like the particulars are good, but the journey from your perspective and your eyes, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about some of what I shared and how you got there and how that came to be, would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for being so gracious. Pretty much what you did, how you responded to Michael Neela, and I wasn't part of that conversation, so I don't really know. But like that's like really important metaphor, opening your heart and being generous, and then magic happens. That's how we meet people. That's how we transform. That's how we evolve. I'm just assuming Michael and you had a conversation, and he said, "Hey, I got a bunch of people coming. Maybe we could use this space for our morning sessions," or something along those lines. And you could have said, "You know what? Under any other circumstances, I would definitely do that. But like my daughter's getting married in like a minute, and the last thing I want is to like crowd the space with this energy, or to have like moving parts in here. I would like it when she and all my family arrives here in Ziwa, that they can just really just move into that space and energetically." And he would have said, "Oh, of course." Anyone would have said, "Oh, of course. Gee, how often does your daughter get married? Of course, yeah, whatever." And instead, you said, "Yeah, bring 30 Cinex cops, into my space, and maybe they'll learn something, or who knows what I don't even know what that conversation was, to tell you the truth." But
let me tell you,
I got to be a part of that, and
yes.
and even once we got there, you were so gracious and so open-hearted and so open-spaced and so open-homed, because there's we let people into our head that we would never let into our home a lot.
Yes,
But you let all these all this energy that could have been like kooky and weird and scary energy perhaps, and you trusted. It turned out to be so beautiful, and I think everyone was in withdrawal when we were like when we're leaving, we're like, "No, we want to go every morning to Gertrude's house and breathe the air and gaze at the ocean and practice yoga and meditate and all that stuff." So
well, I really
I just wanted to
appreciate
share that.
Thank you. And I appreciate it, because it's somewhat of what you said, but I'll tell you like really what happened was, so Michael had seen our place a while ago, and he said something once like, "Oh, well, will you rent it out?" And I said, "No, we really don't plan on renting, our space. So, we're going to have retreats there and do stuff, but we're not going to necessarily rent it." But then this is like probably a couple of years ago that we had that conversation. And then we're having the wedding, and then he doesn't rent his villa. Like, right. He's not in the rental program, but he was the first to extend. And he said, like if you guys are short of space or anything and you would like to use our villa, we're more than happy to have you do that. And we weren't in dire straits, but it was nice and helpful. And then he said, "Oh," and for a totally different reason, he just was like so excited. Our group's coming down, and maybe you can meet everybody, or, you're welcome to join in or whatever. And I was like, well, how can I not like offer? And I could have not, right? But I was actually his first putting out, so generously. Right. It was like, I'd really like to do something in return. And, I think it could be really cool to have the group here. And I didn't have it wasn't like, oh, I had some big debate about it. Right. It just seemed like natural to do that. But what was unexpected, and I said, "Well, do you think I could, hone in and actually do the meditations and stuff?" And Michael and you all were like, "Of course." But then it ended up being such a beautiful, I think like what you said, then magic happened, right? Yeah. And people, it was so lovely, people's response to being there, yours and Mariko. Did I say, now I just realized, did I say Mariko?
Yeah,
right?
Mariko.
Okay. Mariko and Michael.
I just met her the same moment you met her.
Oh, you
just so
did?
know. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
her before.
that. Yeah. And Michael's like, oh, I'd like them to see the space before. And I'm like, of course. I'm like, well, I don't know these people, but you seemed really nice.
I was just intrigued by all the bowls, all the crystal bowls,
We had a lot of
and the statues.
Beautiful. Bowls and statues.
You have a beautiful space, and thank you for opening your heart and your space to this group. Because it's not my organization. I'm a part of it.
Right.
I'm an advisor and a teacher within it, but I don't make any strategic decisions or anything like that. So when I showed up and it was like, oh, here's our space, and Michael kept telling me there's this other space, because we were like, hey, we could do everything on the sand, not a big deal.
Right. We'll do it wherever. Right.
And then he just kept saying, oh no, I think there's a very special place.
But like you were saying, and then, it's not like give and take in a transactional matter at all, but prosody of goodwill and good faith that I felt lent itself to the energy.
That's the thing really that I wanted to point out. We're so, especially after COVID, everyone's, we're just a little bit more protective. We're just a little more suppressed or restricted and constricted.
Yeah.
And so someone asking you to open your heart or open your house or open your space, it's very normal to say, I got a lot of stuff going on, but boundaries, we know how important boundaries are. In this context, energetically, I think the fact that you were, sure. That's the energy we stepped into. We stepped into this space, that had lovingly been opened. And I think, we can translate that, and I'll share just a little bit of my story, because that's,
please.
I started meditating when I was in college. It was an experimental Asian studies course. There were 12 of us. We sat in a circle. Our Zen master stood in the corner. We were supposed to raise our hands when we had a thought during meditation. In his hand, he carried an 18-inch bamboo stick known as a keisaku. So when we had a thought and raised our hands, he would come over to whack us on the back. And I was like, hey, now, of course, if that ever happened to a student, that'd be like a $20 million lawsuit. But back in the day, I just said, I think I'm going to drop this class. Think I'll move on. After like 4 weeks, I was like, I got it. But I loved what the meditation was doing to me, to just have that experience and to have, the beauty of that, to be like, wow, that's so calm. Especially, I was a student in college. So, there's a lot of stress going on there.
Sure.
And I found this beautiful little tool, and I left that class. I met somebody who was like a candle maker. And so we practiced candle gazing. Then I sort of like left that, started like cloud gazing. And then I stopped that. Someone introduced me to mantra, and then I weaved out of that, and someone introduced me to tantra. And then, like all these different things on my journey, vipassana, chocolate tasting meditation, still one of my favorites. All these different types of experiences. And some of them I did for weeks, and some of them for years. And then I got involved in the corporate world, bond trader. And then I moved from that into being a mergers and acquisitions advisor. I was working on the 82nd floor of Tower 2 of the World Trade Center. And, that was my life pretty much. And I had really very, very aware that as I got more and more involved in the corporate world, I was letting my meditation practice slip away. And ultimately, I realized I had traded in my morning meditation for an early morning train ride, into the World Trade Center. And I had traded in my evening practice for a nice big glass of scotch. And like that, meditation really was gone from my life. But I noticed that also so was balance. And I wasn't really loving the work that I did. I was pretty good at it, but I was making a lot of money for other people, not for me, and feeling no fulfillment. The concept of ikigai?
Remind me, because yes.
Ikigai. It's a Japanese concept.
Yeah.
4 overlaying circles, and where they all converge. That's ikigai. Okay. So one circle is, and I'll just back up a little bit. Is like when you're like talking about like, what's my purpose in life? What am I supposed to be doing here? Where should my time and attention be? The answer is ideally the overlap of these 4 areas of your existence. So one is something that you're really good at. Another one is something that you really like doing or feel fulfillment when you do it.
Might not
right?
be
'Cause
the
I'm
same
like,
thing.
I'm like really good at math, but I don't like doing it.
Right.
It's like, I feel it's sort of like, no, don't talk numbers to me because I can crunch them all and I can do all that, but I don't really want to. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. It's, so that would be an example of something like that. The third component is, does it support others? Can it help heal or serve other people? So now we have like, I like to do it. I'm good at it. And it helps, heals, and serves other people. Sort of like this, your podcast would be an example of that.
I love it.
And then the final component of that is, can you be rewarded in some way? Obviously, the West has destroyed this beautiful Japanese concept to make it about, can you monetize it?
Right.
But, it means, can you be rewarded enough of a way so that it's sustainable, right? Because if you love it and you're good at it and it serves others, but you can't afford it, well, then it stops.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out, so it's great that Elon Musk is sponsoring this podcast because otherwise
right.
I'm teasing. Cancel clear that. Just everybody, I was trying to think of like, who's my top billionaire this week? It's probably Musk. It's like, could have been Zuckerberg, could have been Warren Buffett, could have been Bezos, the list goes on. So, but that convergence, if you can find something that meets those 4 things, that's called ikigai, which translated loosely means waking up to joy, right? And so that's why when people say, I've never worked a day in my life because I'm good at it, I love it, it serves others, and I get paid, something along those lines. Anyway, that was distinctly not what was going on in my life. I was good at it, didn't really feel fulfilled, didn't really know that I was helping or serving others.
Right.
When companies had decided to buy another company, I was the person who came in and said, well, where are the synergies? Where can we, collapse this or merge that? So, it's a horrible existence, at least for me. I'm sure other people love it, but it was a horrible existence.
I wonder. Yeah. I guess there would be.
It's a horrible thing, someone's, it's a horrible thing. Well, if a business is not run well, someone's got to come in and say, hey, you need to, tighten up in some way. Cause you're just, if you ran your checkbook like that, you'd be in bankruptcy. We just get the wrong message because our government does that every single day. And we're printing billions of dollars and there's no accountability. And we're spending it on all the wrong stuff. That I don't get, but that's a time for another podcast.
Yes, we can definitely dive into that.
So in the wake of 9/11, I'm walking past a row of cardboard boxes that people are living in southern Manhattan. And as I walk past this particular box, a hand reaches out and this guy pulls on my pant leg and pulls me down and peers into my eyes with his like really bright blue crystalline eyes. And he says to me, what's going to be on your tombstone? It's a fairly reflective moment, out of nowhere.
Which you could so blow off, like, oh, you like,
right, of course,
like,
of course. And I call these butterfly moments.
Yeah.
I could have just blown it off, but in that moment, suddenly everything stopped. There was no sound of traffic. There was no sound of people. It was only my eyes and his eyes. We were like transmitting to each other silently. It was like this some kind of very, very intense transmission going back and forth between the two of us, without moving our lips and nothing else. And it felt like hours. It was probably, a minute or a couple of minutes. But I staggered away from that. My heart, was palpitating. Tears were streaming down my eyes. I was hyperventilating. My knees were weak. I staggered like 20 feet and then sat down on the stairs of an apartment building right near his box. And I said, like, well, what is going to be on my tombstone? Why am I here? What's this whole thing, about? And so came home that night and told my wife what happened. And she was like, you need to quit your job. You need to definitely find something that does fill you because you're just, it's keeping us, paying our bills, but you're miserable. So why would we do that? So she says to me, there's this guy, Deepak Chopra. He's doing a meditation retreat in Oxford, England. And I'd never heard of Deepak Chopra. I thought she was talking about one of those Francis Ford Coppola. That's what I thought she was, because I was like, Francis Ford Coppola? Why is he doing a meditation retreat? She goes, not Coppola, Chopra. And I'm like, oh, okay. I never heard of him. Anyway, I fairly obedient. I quit my job, headed off to Oxford. No one was flying. It was in the wake of 9/11. So no planes were empty. No, if there were planes. And
they were cheap though.
Yeah. Well, there was supposed to be like 3,000 people at this event. And I got there and there was 50. And I was only like one of 3 people from the United States. Everyone else, was pretty local to Oxford. A lot of Europeans were there. And over those, it was a 6-day kind of thing. And over those 6 days, with nothing else to worry about, I just unplugged from my entire life with my wife's blessing. I I reconnected to meditation and meditated and meditated and meditated and meditated. And suddenly, like on day 3, I noticed that for the first time in a really, really, really long time, maybe 10 years, I felt joy for the first time in such a long time. I was like, oh my God, joy. I remember that. I kind of think I remember that emotion, that feeling. And on like day 4, I was like, you know what? I have to like head off in search of the guru. I am like, definitely, I am on a journey here. So I went to the U.S. Embassy in London and got a visa to go to India and headed off on my own little eat, pray, love kind of journey without the eating and the love, just a lot of prayer and searching for the guru. Went up into the Himalayas.
Where'd you go?
Went up north into Dharamsala to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He wasn't there that day. Cruised down, bathed in the Ganges, the incense, and practiced yoga and meditated every day and went to all the temples and, perambulated all the temples, prayed and like all sorts of stuff.
Sure.
I went all the way to the northern tip, all the way to the southern tip, down into Sri Lanka, to Kerala, to Panchakarma. I was there for 6 months, actually 5 months.
I was going to say, that's
28
a big
days.
country, and to do that would take a long time.
You could spend lifetimes just going to little pockets of it.
Been there twice, and one southern, one northern, and we barely saw anything, and 2 10-day trips.
Yeah. Well, since then, I've been taking groups of people there. And of course, my first trip that I took there was like, follow in the footsteps of my journey. And it was like, 43 cities in 8 days, so like all you did was pack and unpack.
Yeah.
It's like, there's the Taj. Okay. Back in the truck. Okay. There's the Ganges. Let's go swim in it. There's the evening arti in Rishikesh. There's the puja, so then I said, let me
let's
make it a little more digestible with totally. So, I'm cruising around there. The visa was for 6 days and I'm on, 6 months, and on 5 months and 28 days, I'm laying in a hammock in a cashew forest in Kerala with these parrots chirping. And I'm just laying there reading the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient texts. I have a couple of Bhagavad Gitas lying around here. I always have Gitas lying around here. This is the smallest Gita, I think.
Oh my gosh.
In the world, it's like, just to put it in perspective.
I have never ventured into fully reading it. Just
to put it in perspective, it's like the size of my AirPods case. It's tiny. So I'm reading the Gita for like the 100th time over those 6 months. And if anyone is going to dabble or venture forth, it's like the Bible, like thousands of different translations and different type of angles. I recommend 2 translations. The most poetic and the most beautiful is by Eknath Easwaran, Eknath, Eknath Easwaran, Easwaren.
Right, and we'll put that in the show.
And I make no commission from guiding people to Eknath Easwaran. He's no longer with us in this physical realm. And another one, a little more devotional, but it's got some amazing mic drop lines, is the one by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. That's called the Bhagavad Gita as it is. It's the same Gita, but both of these are just like, everyone's got a different translation.
The window in, right? A perspective, like certain drawing out, so, highlighting different aspects. Okay, good. Well, those will be in the show notes. And I'm gonna,
good. So if you care, most people can't even pronounce the Bhagavad Gita, so they have no clue what it is. But it was written 300 years ago. And I love talking about the Gita.
I thought it was older than that. Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 300 BC.
Oh, thank you. You said 300 years ago. Yes. I was like, it's older.
I'm so excited to be with you that I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. So I'm laying in this hammock reading the Bhagavad Gita. What's a Bhagavad Gita? So you figure, what are we talking about? 2,300 years ago, the greatest warrior of all time, Arjuna, is on the battlefield, the plains of Kurukshetra in like northwest India. It's like a Hatfields versus McCoy's kind of thing. He was supposed to ascend to the throne because his father, is the king, and his mother died. And of course, the next wife convinces her new husband, she's got 4 sons, and actually, shouldn't they be ascending to the throne? The guy, obviously spineless, says yes. And then the battle begins between all the people who go like, no, this is Arjuna should be our king. He's like the greatest warrior of all time, and he's loving and compassionate and heart, and these four guys are like the Four Stooges. They're horrible and mean, and they're like, pick your four worst people that you know of in this life, and that's them.
That's them.
And so he finds himself on the battlefield. He's about to lead the battle between the forces of good, we could say, against these other forces of evil. But as he looks across the battlefield, he's just in despair. He looks across and he sees the teachers who taught him, his schoolmate. He sees, relatives who are on the other side of this, who are siding, with his dad's newfound epiphany. And he's got his head in his hands, and he is truly at the crossroads, and anybody been there? Anybody here ever been at the crossroads? This
raising
week,
my hand.
Right,
yeah.
right. And so suddenly this dude comes riding up on a chariot, because that was the mode of transport. Dude comes riding up on a chariot, and he rides right up to Arjuna and says, which is spelled Arjuna, like Arjuna, but it's Arjuna. And he says, hey, what's going on here? And Arjuna says, dude, you wouldn't believe it. I'm the greatest warrior of all time, but I don't want a warrior. I'm a little, I don't want to do this thing that, this goes back to like the ikigai conversation, right? I can't, my heart it's absolutely not in it. And the charioteer says, all right, well, I'm the greatest charioteer of all time, and I've got 5,000 soldiers behind me. So I'll give you a choice. You could either have me, and if you choose me, the 5,000 soldiers will go over to the other side. Or if you want, you can choose my soldiers. You'll get the 5,000 soldiers, and I'll go over to the other side. And Arjun is like, listen, I don't need more soldiers. I need clarity. And the charioteer says, whew, well, that's a good choice because I'm God. And so this is like the original conversations with God. Neil Donald Walsh wrote that book, Conversations with God. This is the original conversations with God. Gandhi read it every day. Einstein read it every day. Thoreau read it every day. Emerson read it every day. It's a deep look into the, dharma and karma and life and death and what we should be doing and what represents our duty. And should I be an activist or a pacifist? And how attached should I be to my actions, and how shall I love my life, and how do I merge with the divine, which is really what your podcast is all about. It's really about awakening the divine feminine energy that is the most creative and most magnificent energy on the planet. And this is, here's Arjuna, struggling at the crossroads. And so it's 18 chapters where they just sit and chat about, who are you and why are you here and what are you supposed to be doing and what's your duty? And, how shall we spend our days, and how will we connect to something bigger than us? I mean, it's so powerful. Anyway, so I'm hanging out in this cashew forest in Kerala, reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I read chapter 2. Chapter 2 is all about action, karma. And so, suddenly, I read chapter 2, verse 47, which essentially translated is, we have total control over our own actions and no control over the fruit of those actions. And yet we spend so much time in the fruit. So it's like so powerful because Arjuna says to God, in the form of Krishna, like, how am I supposed to live my life? How am I supposed to walk through the world, God? And God replies in chapter 2, verse 48, and this is the lightning bolt that hit me, yoga sta kuru karmani, which essentially means establish yourself at the present moment and then perform action. Essentially, get still and then be brilliant. Step into your power, own your impact, but get still first, because we knee jerk our way into so many different things, and blurt out stuff, and we get defensive and knee jerk, and we get triggered, like, all that stuff. So I don't know, I read that line hundreds and hundreds of times, and suddenly, but when I read it in that moment, I was like, yes, that's how I want to live my life. I want to just take a breath before I speak. I want to just get still before I act. I want to just compose myself. Let me actually pull back the bow before I fire it. And that was just like everything in my life changed in that moment. It was like another butterfly moment. And I was like, ooh, that's it. So I raced home as if you could race from Kerala. I raced to the bus stop, and it took 2 days for the bus to come. And then the bus took 2 days to get to the airport in Mumbai. And then I had to wait like another 28 hours. And then the flight's 28 hours. So I raced home. Right. And when I got home, all I did was meditate. I just meditated day in, day out. I meditated for like 8 hours a day. Meditated in the morning, meditated for lunch, meditated, whatever. And so my friends were, they were worried about me because that's all I did. And they were like, hey, you want to go out? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to sit here and meditate. So they have the intervention, and they said, dude, all you do is sit around and meditate. And I was like, I know. Isn't it amazing? And they're like, no, even you have been telling us about that Yogastaku Karmani thing. You got to get still.
Right.
And then
act.
Step into your power. You got to act.
Yeah.
You got to do the thing. You can't, so these ancient teachings don't tell us just to be pacifists.
No.
They tell you, you have the obligation to act. So we all need to use our platforms to raise the vibration of, and point out social injustice and point out sustainability issues and point out like all the issues that are really existing in our world. We have that. That's our job. Yeah. That is absolutely our job. Because a lot of times we think, oh no, I'm supposed to just sit around, go into the cave and just sit around and meditate.
Yeah, that's what we've been taught to believe holy people do,
Right,
and
exactly. And we call this, we call this spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
Because like, yes, we need to get still, but we need to sit down. Right. We need to sit down so we can rise up. That's really, what it comes down to. And so my friends did like a little mini intervention on me, and they were like, dude,
those are real friends, right?
They were like, it's great. All right. You haven't worked in a year. All you do is sit around and meditate. I got really good credit. I have no cash, but I have really good credit. And they go, well, it won't be good for long if you just keep, tapping that credit card. And they said, your pal Deepak, he's got like a center in California, and I was living in New York. And like, why don't you go out there and you could get like certified as a meditation teacher? And I remember saying, listen, I'm from Queens. I don't care about anyone else's meditation, And they said, well, okay, fair enough. But if you, let's not talk about altruism here, but if you really want to learn something, to learn to teach it, that's how you become an expert.
Oh, good angle. These are good friends.
Yeah. Right? Oh, they yanked me out of my...
They're allies, I should call them. Sometimes it's more the ally than friend.
Yeah, support system. I think it's really important that we should always surround ourselves with people who don't necessarily agree with us, because I think we can learn a lot from people who don't agree with us. Yeah. But we must surround ourselves with people who are rooting for us to succeed. Mm-hmm. Even if you're related to them. If they're not rooting for you to succeed, move on.
Yeah.
Life's too short. We're all going to die. We're all going to die. And you're going to like spend time with someone who's rooting against you? No, we don't need to do that. So anyway, so I was like, okay, fine. So I head out to California to this, to get certified. I didn't know it, but that 1 week retreat that I did in Oxford counted as like, criteria to be acted as credit for me being a teacher. And then I went out to the Ayurveda immersion, the 5-day Ayurveda immersion in Carlsbad, California. And I figured I get out there, it'll be another 1,000 people. I get out there, there's 30. What? There's 30 people. And I'm like, whoa, what happened to everyone? And, Deepak and David Simon, these partners, they're like, well, people haven't been responding so well since 9/11. And I was like, I call BS on that. They said, what do you do? Why are you an expert? I go, I turn around businesses. That's what I do. I teach people to turn around companies. And they were like, all right, do you want to be the COO? And I'm like, okay. I said, I'm going to go back to New York. I'm going to tell you what to do. I'll call in each week. I'll give you a little report card and you'll tell me how you did. And Deepak was like, no, you got to breathe the air here. You got to stay here. I said, okay, I'll stay here. When do I start? And I never left. Well, I did leave 6 months later to fly back and drive my truck back and all my stuff. Because I had gone for a 4-day event, had a suitcase and some clothes.
Carry on probably, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it was pretty hysterical. And so I became the COO, and about 45 days we were able to turn that business, into a positive trajectory. And then I became the lead educator because I was teaching meditation every single day. Mm-hmm. And then I became the dean of Chopra Center University. And I was like, okay, this goes back to you, Gertrude, saying yes when Michael Neela said, how about us coming? There wasn't a question they asked me that I didn't say yes to. Right. They're like, how much should we pay you? I said, you can't pay me what I know I'm worth. How about I work for free for the first 6 months? And they were like, done. So, I found an environment where there was zero barrier to entry. Yeah. And here I am 20 years later. And meanwhile, I've, run that, certified, thousands of people, been able to really help people with their recovery, with their healing, with their heart healing, with their physical healing. Yeah.
Hi, I'm so excited to share with you my 2024 Spring Equinox Self-Mothering Retreat that's happening this March 2024. And I would love for you not only to consider it, but to attend. But in considering it, Hey, just knowing that you would be leaving cold weather if that's the space that you're in and coming down to just magnificently beautiful, warm, nourishing place of Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Zihuatanejo meaning land of the goddess women. And coming to really take time for yourself. Okay. And that I am learning more and more isn't just a nice thing to do or something extravagant or something selfish. It's essential. And I really want you to take it seriously, to consider, just think about what would it take for me to go. It's a 5.5-day retreat, getting from where you are, getting there, landing there, and then being in a space that is all about you. It's all about nourishing you. It's all about tuning into you, using everything around us, the nature, the food, the beautiful people, the rituals, ceremonies. I bring it, we really bring it. And we go deeper and deeper as the days go on, and we release, we let go, we bring in what is nourishing, what is empowering, what is that space of just really divine feminine energy. And we do it in the community of women. It's not for everyone. I will be honest, if the idea of leaving and not making it work, or it's just too hard, not for you. If the idea of, spending that amount of time inwardly focused and going to that level of self-awareness doesn't sound like something you're willing to do or put the time and energy into, then it's not for you. And it's good to know that, right? So this is for people who are serious about what it means to mother themselves, what it means to take time for ourselves, and that gift and what that gift can bring to us. It was originally right after my fall retreat. It filled right up. But now some people, it turns out, are not able to come. So I do have a handful of openings. And if you're listening to this and you're willing to take that step, please reach out to me. We can do a discovery call, or you can put a deposit down. I would love that. And you can do that by going to my website, www.drgertrudelyons.com. Go to events, and there you go. It'll all be there. There's a beautiful page there for you to explore. I look forward to hearing from you and then seeing you on my spring retreat.
Well, this is where I want to chime in there because, well, first of all, thank you, because I read, I don't know if it's in all your books, but I read it, your story, it's on the website, but hearing it from you, I literally was laughing, crying, and all over the place. Thank you for sharing it and bringing all of that, because I think there's so many pieces, and I'd love to unpack it. But just with what you were just saying, I've, through this work and putting myself out there now being, not just sitting in my apartment in Queens, meditating, which, energetically, like, I guess I've always felt like monks, people that meditate in caves their whole life, like, are serving a purpose of some sort, but, because they're putting out positive energy, but directly serving people and turning them on and enlightening them and bringing them someplace. I shared this with you, but it was one of the things I said, I wonder if, you would be on my podcast, particularly in mothering, because I had a woman reach out when I posted that you were at our place. And actually I had a meeting. She was in a meeting I was in that week. She literally teared up and said, it's so amazing you got to be with davidji. He literally got me through postpartum depression. And she said, I don't tear up easily, or say something like that, but that's just really hitting me, remembering that right now. Now, I didn't ask her details like, well, how, what did he do? How did he do that? But I'm getting with what you're saying that it isn't a formula. She made the choice to tune into you. You had made the choice. You were giving, you were putting yourself out there, what your velvet voice or whatever it was that, she was able to tune into to turn things around for herself. And I'd say that's a pretty awesome exchange, right? And maybe money was exchanged somewhere in there. Maybe she bought insight time or meditation. I don't even know,
It's free. It's free.
It's free, right? And your response was lovely. You're like, thank you, because, we don't always know the impact we're making. And
right.
And we're not doing it to like get lots of accolades necessarily, but it is nice to get those nods from the universe periodically. It's like, oh yeah, like that's why I'm doing this is, I made this impact on that one woman that got her through a really incredibly challenging time. So I'm thanking you for her, but also for me. And it made me think about women and mothers and the stress that they're under and the stress they've been under. And when I was in India, this was in the 2000s, 2008, 2009, I was with a group, and we were meeting with, some yogis, some masters, some, I can only, Sri Ravi Shankar is the only one I can remember. Like, I just don't hold their names all that well. So, but some really lovely, lovely people. And when we could ask questions, people would ask like, well, this is my mission in life. What would you say, like, to help me, guide me, or something like that? Yoga and meditation. Like, didn't say much beyond that. Yoga and meditation. we started laughing about it. It's like, well, I guess that's the go-to answer, but it's that powerful without bypassing. So I just said a lot. There was the thank you. There was the, how do we touch this? And
well, it's so accessible. And yes, there's a whole bunch of, I'm a fan of all the various meditation apps, but this is also a no equipment necessary. I would love to just share, before we proceed any further, I would love to just share like a basic tool that I shared with,
I was hoping we do that.
That I would share with people, when I'm traveling in an airport. I share with, whenever I'm teaching. And that's what I spend my time doing. Spend my time teaching to I would call them high risk people. So whether it's kids in schools, whether it's homeless, whether it's cops, whether it's people in high pressure jobs and situations, and this is like, I get a lot of, interesting feedback because I work with the cops, and people are like, how could you? You who've dedicated your life to fairness and social justice, like, how in the world can you work with cops? And I'm like, okay. And the alternative is exactly nothing.
Right.
So I've worked with Marines. I'm a pacifist. I'm not pro-war. But like, these people are wounded. They're damaged. They're so stressed out. Especially cops, have an average lifespan of 5 years from date of retirement, and they're not retiring in their 80s. Their kids' highest suicide rate of any profession's children. So I want to do what I can to help these people take a breath, de-escalate, heal some of their emotional wounds, and things, along those lines. And so this is also a technique that I have shared with thousands of cops over the years. But I'll share this with us. Please. And if you're listening and you're like, I've got an issue with cops, okay, just let the cops go. Right. We're talking about us. There's only 1 million cops in the United States anyway. That might seem like a lot. It is a lot, but like, we don't have to go there. That's another podcast. Mm-hmm. So, but we are dealing, beautiful. You and I are dealing with our day to day, where we're making assumptions that are wrong, where we're holding on to grudges and grievances, sometimes for decades, where we take stuff personally, where we were not necessarily impeccable with our word, where we, specifically, intentionally tried to hurt someone. And then as the words were coming out of our mouth, we're like, oh no, I can't. I wish I could stop these words from coming out, but they are coming out. And then what do we do with that? Never sleep for the rest of our lives? This goes on and on and on and on. So here's a technique that you can use in any situation. So think about something that's been irritating you over the last couple of days. Don't go too deep. This isn't therapy. Mm-hmm. Just an irritation, a bother. Someone said they were going to do something. They didn't. Something was supposed to happen. It didn't unfold the way you anticipated. Maybe you could even see a face with that disappointment or irritation or perturbance. And now close your eyes, and through your nose, take a long, slow, and deep breath in, and watch that breath as it goes down into your belly. And when it gets there, hold it there. Hold that breath in your belly and watch it. Observe it, witness it. And now release that breath and watch it as it moves up your belly, up your chest, through your throat, out your nose or mouth. Keep exhaling, keep watching it, keep witnessing it. Keep observing that breath as it dissipates into the ether. And now breathe normally and open your eyes. And that was about 16 seconds. And if you were playing along, I know that you, Dr. Gertrude Lyons, were playing along.
Yes.
But if our listeners were playing along, then they were not thinking about that thing I just asked you to think about. So imagine, I didn't say stop thinking about the thing. But in that 16 seconds, you are not in the past. You are not in the future. You were fully present. And I never said, okay, get fully present here. So we learned 3 things. Number 1, we learned that we can direct our thoughts anywhere we want in any moment. And I'm not telling you to run from your thoughts. I think it's really important to sit with some of our real trauma and pain and let it ooze out of our heart. But just so you know, we can adjust and redirect our attention whenever we want. And this is an ancient teaching going back 2,000 years to Patanjali, going back 2,600 years to the Buddha. So that's number 1. Number 2, we learned one of what we did was introduce a pattern interrupt, a break in the action, sort of like a time in we just introduced. We can do that anytime, and we have the ability in many, many ways. If suddenly you're in a very, very heated conversation, you can always say, I have to go to the bathroom. There's a whole bunch of ways we can create a pause, a pattern interrupt, and without having to run to the bathroom, certainly just breathing in and watching that breath to the count of 4, holding that breath in your belly as you watch it and witness it to the count of 4, releasing that and observing it, and then continuing to let that breath go, for about 4 seconds. This is all just about 4 seconds, breathe for 4, hold for 4, let go for 4, and hold that out for 4. Some people refer to that as box breathing. The Navy SEALs do that, and Army Rangers and Marines. But what they don't do is watch the breath. That's what we did.
That's what I was going to say. That was so
by putting our
me.
attention onto the actual activity. We were fully present with that. So box breathing, we know, lowers your pulse and slows you down. This brings you into the present moment. It's a guarantee. And we just, think of all the different pattern interrupts. It happens on TV. You're watching TV and they have a commercial. That's a break in the action. That's a pattern interrupt. Just so many. They used to be in movies. They used to be like an intermission. That was it was to force you to buy stuff in the in the lobby. But these are all pattern interrupts, breaks in the action. And we now know that most of us sit staring at a screen for hours and hours and hours. But we now, the most recent neurological evidence really is that after 45 minutes, you're not any better. Everyone should stop at the 45-minute mark, even if you're just going to walk around your desk. Stop. Breathe, close your eyes, stretch out, walk around your desk, plop back down, and then work for the next 45 minutes. But we benefit by introducing a pattern interrupt. Our brain actually works better. We've all been watching TV or watching a movie, and I watch a lot of TV. I'm a professional streamer. And so we'll be watching something and it's like, oh, actor, it's that guy who was in that thing. And then someone says, hey, you want some popcorn? And you turn your head just for a moment and unplug from the screen. And you go, yeah, I love popcorn. You're like, so as you eat, it's like, oh yeah, Ray Liotta.
We know
because what happens are the way our brain works, it actually works better if we can pull away from trying. I'm trying to remember. If we can, pull back all those synapses, pull back because they're not really connecting, and then they connect like in a groove, more seamlessly. So we know that, that's the second one, introduce a pattern interrupt. And the third thing we learned.
And that can be just thinking about something different, right? Does it have to be doing
anything?
Anything,
no,
right?
No,
like
anything.
I could be on this track and I just like, the sky is blue,
Right, exactly. We absolutely get to introduce our own pattern interrupts, whatever they are. One of the big ones that I write about was like, it was a big football game in the San Francisco 49ers. And there was like, a minute left on the clock. It was the Super Bowl. They were losing. And Joe Montana had them on like the 5-yard line, and they had to go 95 yards all the way down the field. And they were all freaking out. And everybody was like resigned to losing. And suddenly Joe Montana they're in the huddle. And he goes, hey, look, it's John Candy, the comedian. And everyone stopped, turned around, looked at John Candy, and they all start, giggling. And then they come back into the huddle. And he leads them down the field, and it's a famous Super Bowl story. And then they win the Super Bowl, and whatever. But just classic breaks in the action. Whatever we can do. Suddenly a song coming on the radio can be that, or the phone ringing. We don't take advantage enough of these pattern interrupts, these breaks in the action, but they're actually very nourishing and healing for our neurology. And the third thing we learned, and this is a secret of meditation, the object of your attention. Anyone can meditate under any circumstances as long as you have an object of attention. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a cloud. It could be a wall socket. It can be somebody's eyeball. It can be a candle. It can be a mantra. It can be your breath. It can be anything. But as long as you have the object of attention, because our attention span is about 5 seconds, I think, like we're like goldfish.
Yeah.
I think goldfish is 8 seconds. Ours is 5 seconds. We might have a longer memory than a goldfish, but we are, I remember waiting in line for 2 hours at the Louvre to see, the Mona Lisa with my dad. We waited for 2 hours outside online. We finally get in there. And I remember within 5 seconds of me staring at the Mona Lisa, I was like, is she smiling? Is she frowning? Where was the Mona Lisa? Why would the Mona Lisa be in the Louvre? Why? We waited for 2 hours, and suddenly within 5, I think it was 8 seconds, I was had moved on from the Mona Lisa that I was staring at. So we know object of attention, we're going to drift away. And so that's why, people think, oh, just give them the special mantra and they'll go deep. And it's like, no, within 8 seconds, you will drift away to thoughts or sounds or physical sensations. But if it's like, it's okay to have thoughts. Thoughts mean you're alive. No thoughts, flatlining. So thoughts are good.
Thoughts are good.
And so if we drift away, and we have something to drift back to. And that's really what meditation is. It's a gentle drifting back and forth. So we don't beat ourselves up when suddenly we find ourselves going,
you don't get whacked on the back with a stick.
Exactly.
Right?
So many meditation, I love
we do
food.
that to
So
ourselves.
many meditations. I'm like thinking about I'm in the supermarket. I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to get those avocados, a little lime, a little lemongrass, mince up a little onion, have some guacamole, pop in some garlic there. This is the middle of my meditation. And suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm in the supermarket. I think I'll ever so gently drift back to the object of my attention, whatever that is. So I think everyone can do it. It's accessible to everyone. And the reason that people don't meditate more is because they haven't found the style that works for them. Some people, they want to chant something in a foreign language. Some people, they just want to go over and over and over and over, repeating the name of their God, whether it's, Hail Mary or Ave Maria or Jesus is my Lord and Savior or Shalom or Allahu Akbar or Hamdallah. We can go on and on with what that is, or peace. My name is Peace or Satnam. So we can go in so many different directions. And I think, waking up to start your day with a trajectory of stillness and silence allows us to move through the day with greater grace and greater ease. If you could just practice that 16 seconds, do that 4 times, it's a minute, do it 20 times, it's 5 minutes. That's like a real technique. Yeah. I've trained people who you would never expect these people to be meditating. And they do that for like 25 minutes every morning. And they are, very, very busy people. And prior to that, they were like, you don't understand. I run this giant company. You don't understand. I'm a Marine. You don't understand. I'm waking up at 4:30 and running 10 miles. You don't understand. It's like, I get it.
Right.
I understand it all. What do you choose? Do you want to choose to live a life where you're clearer and have less brain fog and sleep better at night and are more patient with your relationships and are a better listener and more compassionate and have a greater understanding of why you're here and what your purpose is in life? There are people who are like too busy for that. Right. There are people there's trillions of dollars of people taking drugs to have that, and we have no equipment necessary.
Well, it's the spell we're under, right? That we think that we've been taught to believe, or it's been wired in us that like we can't or won't. But I think, and that's what I loved from the time I was with you were those concepts like make it easy, make it comfortable, do what works for you. Like if we think it's going to be something, I got to go do that thing, which is kind of my relationship right now with cold plunging. But
mine too.
Yes, but it does feel good when you're done. But it doesn't, there's other things you could do. If I chose not to do cold plunging, it's not the end of the world, but meditate. If you want to lay down, if you want to sit up, you don't have to be uncomfortable.
Comfort is queen. Comfort is queen. We need to always keep moving towards comfort. And, cold plunging, it's great. And it's certainly very, very trendy now. Mm-hmm. meditation's been going on for about 5,000 years.
Yeah,
so
probably before that. As
we don't have
know,
to
right?
Right. We don't have to defend it. It's been doing pretty fine on its own.
Right.
But I
and like
will
you said,
say-
it doesn't cost anything and you can do
Right.
it, which is,
Right. So we have the ability to start our day with meditation and to have another one in the afternoon. So for all the people who are like, you don't understand. The last thing I got to walk my dog. I got to feed my cat. I got to chug my Nespresso. Like, okay, I get that. So how about this for all you excuse makers out there? The second meditation of the day, for those of us who are not crisis meditators, the second meditation of the day, this is like the afternoon, sometime between noon and 6, ideally before dinner. Sit for 5 minutes, and just as you breathe in, silently repeat let, and as you breathe out, silently repeat go. Just do that. It's the let go meditation. It's such a catharsis. We're talking 5 minutes. And you might say, well, what's that going to do? Well, here's how we've been living our life. We absorb all this stuff. We take stuff personally. We have grudges and grievances, disappointments, stub toes. And then we come into dinner time and we pretty much then vomit that all over anyone that we're having dinner with. Like, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened. At 8 o'clock, someone cut me off. At 10 o'clock, the copier got jammed. At 1 o'clock, my email went down. At 3 o'clock, the Wi-Fi shut. Like all we're doing is like whining and complaining.
Right.
Don't we want to instead sit down with our loved ones or anyone that we're having dinner with, because they're all going to die. We're all going to die. Everybody's going to die. And instead we're like, oh my God, we're getting to have dinner. I love you so much. I'm so grateful to be here with you. Wouldn't that be a better dinner time conversation? So if we could have a process where we would let go whatever we've absorbed over the course of the day. And if you do it, consistently, I'm not letting go of today when I do it. I'm letting go of like last week. I'm actually working on like 2014 because I'm showing up every single day and letting go and letting go and letting go. And even if you say, yeah, but I meet with a therapist every week. Okay, that's once a week. This is every day.
Every day.
And meditation is always about consistency, not duration. And there have been powerful studies on the brain, many great studies by Dr. Sarah Lazar, who's got one foot in the University of Mass General, and another foot in the Harvard Business School, Harvard Medical Center world. And she has done so many amazing studies, and it really was her landmark 2012 study where she had 16 test subjects, 56 days. They were told to just meditate. They had MRIs of their brain before, during, and after the 56 days. We're talking about less than 2 months.
Yeah.
And at the end of these 8 weeks, which is what 56 days is, I should just back up for a minute and say that from the age of 20 to 29, our brains are at their peak. And our hippocampus, which is the part of our brain responsible for learning, memory, and spatial orientation, hand-eye coordination, it's at its peak. Around 28, it starts to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And that's why people, forget what they're saying or have senior moments or whatever you want to call that. So from the age of 30, your hippocampus is, the gray matter of your hippocampus is shrinking. All right. So fast forward to this study. So this study, at the end of the 56 days, every single person in the study, when their hippocampi, I guess that's the plural of hippocampuses, when their hippocampi were analyzed, and they should be getting thinner, 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 all of them, all 16, unanimously experienced an increase of more than 5% of the gray matter of their hippocampus.
Wow.
We're talking about in less than 2 months. It's a powerful study. When this study was going on, Sarah Lazar was like, anybody else want in on this? Because this is going to be the landmark one. And even Yale was like, we weren't going to be on it, but here's a few million. We'll be in on this one too. Yeah. And so imagine that. They also, every single person, their amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for anger and fear and anxiety, that shrunk by more than, the gray matter shrunk by more than 5% over those 56 days. So 2 things that can't happen. They're not supposed to happen. The natural aging process, they work the opposite way. And in under 2 months, just by showing up and meditating, these people were supposed to just watch their breath for 30 minutes. And then it was later revealed that some of them were phoning it in. So the average was actually 22 minutes.
Oh,
So 22 minutes a day, you can change the physical structure of your brain.
so it's not like
22 minutes.
they were meditating all day. They just did it
No,
consistently and were tracked. Wow.
22 minutes a day for 56 days. Just like that meditation that I have on Insight Timer,
Yeah.
which is a 56-day. I suggest to people, it's called Deep Healing, and it's free. And I suggest do it for 56 days, clinically, scientifically proven to change the physical structure of your brain. Like, how cool is that?
Because I wanted to make sure people knew all of these ways. So you just gave us beautiful nuggets. I'm sitting here like from the beginning of the conversation, this whole reciprocity. You saying yes to being on my podcast, which I was so grateful for. I feel so given to. These are all things sitting here in this moment, in my life at the moment, even though, those moments in January have been really significant going forward. So now these are all things, that I'm applying to my life. And I want to make sure, that the busy moms, they put themselves in this category of cops and people under duress and stress, right? Because they are. I have been a major excuse maker. Like I can't find 5 minutes a day or 20 minutes and that, going to Target for your self-care isn't self-care. It's running an errand, it's taking care of business that needs to happen. So I'm seeing application all over the place, but I guess I just want to say thank you most personally to myself. But that's why I love doing a podcast, because we could have this conversation. It would impact me. Me being with you impacted me. But now a lot more people get to hear it, right? And that 16-second, I breathe differently because of that. And I, have had various meditation training. I'm trained in breath work. There's always something new that I can be learning, or a way to hear it and do it, because I've never really tracked my breath down to my belly. Like I'll belly breathe, and that has been having an impact, a very significant positive one. And now I'll take that as an interrupter or as something that brings me to the moment. I wasn't even holding it that strongly. So I get to, now take it further.
And if you do that breathing with using like ujjayi breath, which is that breath where you sort of like, everyone knows how to like fog the mirror, hold up your hand and fog the mirror. And if you do that with your mouth closed, it's just like, feels like forcing a breath out, but it's really just breathing with a little constriction in your throat, in and out. That's called ujjayi breath, which is translated from the Sanskrit. That means, victory breath. And so
I like that.
If you can, ideally, we want to practice 16 seconds to clarity. I used to call it 16 seconds to Ananda, but then I started teaching it at like Camp Pendleton to Marines, and they were like, "Who's Ananda? What's Ananda?" I'm like, I was like, it's 16 seconds to bliss. They're like, that's really not our style. I go, how about 16 seconds to clarity? They're like, I like that one.
I need a clear head. Right?
Tactical breathing. So when I can't do it with my eyes closed, because you don't want to do this at the table, the dinner table,
the board meeting,
right at the board meeting. It's just so do it with your eyes open. No one at the meeting is going to go, wait a second, are you using that 16 seconds technique? But so what I do when I'm by myself is I use ujjayi breathing, because that vibration of it's really so soothing for our vagus nerve, which is the nerve that's connected to like everything from your autonomic nervous system. And that prevents us from suddenly, reacting or knee jerking or flighting from a moment. And if I'm at a meeting or the dinner table, I do the exact opposite. I call it like ninja breath. It's also referred to as quiet, continuous breathing. It's so slow through my nose. And when you go so slow, like really, really slow and silent, so no one can hear it, you can go like inhale to the count of like 20, and it slows you down. Suddenly the world comes at you a little bit slower and you're a little less reactive. Recommendations, a couple of breathing. Wow. It's all breathing. Nobody breathes enough on this planet.
I know, right? I think maybe I read this also. I can't remember, but being trained in dynamic breath work, I was aware that, yeah, somehow we lost the belly breathing and we breathe from our chest, which is a state of fear. We're constantly fear-based breathing as if we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, which
Right.
we're not. We might be in a stressful situation sometimes, but we don't need to live that way, right?
Right.
And I think that's also the benefit of what you're talking about is that we can shift that and we are going to feel more peaceful. We are going to have more clarity. Like the word, I have, and I am now, I just decided as we're sitting here and I'll report back somewhere to someone that I'm going to tell my husband that he and I are both going to do the 56-day meditation.
Yeah.
And because we both know it's good for us. We both do it periodically.
Right.
At various times had some consistency and I felt the difference. Right. So this is for me a big call. And I hope everyone who's listening takes it and tries it. And whether you haven't tried it yet, like rewind the podcast and do it again, or go to your website. You have so much free stuff. Like it's wonderful. And so many ways that you can just tune in for a little bit or a longer time. I mean, time erased when you did the meditations here and I had deep healing from those meditations. I would have thought they were 10 minutes and it was like 45 minutes or an hour. Like I had no time, just was gone. And yes, we need to plan the time for it. But as far as feeling like when you're in it, like, oh, this is taking forever, like that just is never the case because we get to get there. So, I want to keep talking, so this is really hard for me. But I hope you come back. I hope we can do this again because we already tagged like 5 other topics that I'd love to get into. But for now, if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners, and it'll be in the show notes, just maybe a couple of favorite ways or the current way or something you'd like people to tune into specifically right now as a way to be in connection with your work. And then I have one last question.
Well, you can follow me pretty much everywhere. I've recorded like 18 albums. It's up to like 1,700 individual guided meditations. Mm-hmm. Your starting point can be davidji.com, davidji.com. And I do stuff in person. I do a lot of stuff virtually. Mm-hmm. But I like to do them both. I was doing a lot of virtual stuff before the pandemic. And so nothing really changed there at all. Right. But I love, there's just something about, being in someone's energy. And I do most of my experiences in San Diego. I'm a resident of San Diego,
which I love.
Never left. It's no Ziwa and it's no New York City, but
no,
it comes
close. It
has
its own magic. It definitely has its own magic.
Its own energy. So if you'd like to tap into my free guided meditations, tons on my site. I also do meditation teacher training for people who want to level up their practice. Mm-hmm.
And do you have to, is there like a prerequisite for that? Do you have to have been consistently meditating to do
No,
I
want
for myself,
the exact
actually.
opposite. I want the opposite. I want people who don't have a lockdown thing. And then they're like, oh, I was able to actually lock it down, create this beautiful thing because, everyone's got imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So that's one of the things. The journey, there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of study. It's not a drive-through. You can't phone it in. But no, all you have to have is an open heart and the desire to take your life to the next level. And then it's like, all right, you meet the criteria.
Here we go. Yeah. No, I've learned along the way that learning to teach it is some of the best ways to learn it for yourself. Right. Okay. So last question is, the basis and so much of what we talked about today was breaking beliefs and breaking through wiring and what we can and can't do. So my platform is called Rewriting the Mother Code. What does that mean to you? Or what would you say rewriting the Mother Code means to you?
Well, I believe that we were born pure and whole. And someone like me who grew up in a fairly violent household and did not get the greatest amount of guidance, but I'm carrying that DNA. I believe that each of us can decide to be rebirthed every single day. And that doesn't mean blow up everything that existed before, but it means, same thing with ancestral healing. We get to absolutely let go and end the cycle of stuff that doesn't nourish. At the same time, like the stuff that's good, we get to elevate that. And so I think we get to, release and lean in, release and lean in. And that's evolution. So for me, it's awakening our divine feminine energy, which is the most powerful energy in the universe, created the solar system, created the galaxies. It's that. We would call that just that, right? And it's hard, and it's inside of us, and it's mostly dormant. It's mostly sleeping. So rewriting the mother code to me means, awakening that magnificent divine feminine that's resting inside each one of us and giving ourselves permission to loosen your grip on what's holding you back, which can be pretty extensive and traumatic and big. That's why just start by loosening your grip. You don't have to let go. Letting go could be too scary. But then, leaning in just a little bit into your superpowers, into the stuff that is residing inside of you, and own it. Own that. Let's phone nothing in. My father-in-law just died right before, a week, 2 weeks before we connected. And the thing about him was he never phoned anything in. And so I am, I'm committed to, that's one of the most amazing things that he, power of his ripple, bringing that into the world. And so I want to share that with as many people as possible. Don't phone stuff in. No. If you think you're going to phone it in, just don't do it. Do something else. But don't phone in, what matters.
Here. Well, that was, I love asking that question because everybody gets it, but their own spin on it. And I happen to really like yours because it's the whole choice. Take what you were wired, take what, is positive, let go of the rest, and, build from there. And you can let go of that wiring. Thank you so much. This is
thank you.
Just been super delight. And I can't wait for our next conversation because there's
me too.
Way more. We're just getting started. But thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gertrude Lyons. It's a pleasure to spend time with you. And thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for this podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for choosing yourself and taking the time to listen to this podcast. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother. Subscribe to Mother. It helps other people who need this message, aka all women, well, actually everybody, men included, find it. I'm honored to have you on this journey in mothering yourself. Remember, change is uncomfortable, but it's beautiful, and it starts with us. And if you can't wait until next week's episode, follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Dr. Gertrude Lyons or at my website, drgertrudelyons.com. I'll see you next time.